My parents only paid for my twin sister's debutante ball because she is the pretty one. My dad rolled his eyes. You're just not that special. The next day, a stranger approached me. Are you the girl from the viral video? Turns out, I was more special than they ever knew. I always knew my parents favored my twin sister, Camille. It wasn't even something they tried to hide. She was the golden child, the one who got the compliments, the attention, the second glances from strangers. And me? I was just there, the twin no one really noticed. We looked alike, same blue eyes, same blonde hair, but Camille had something extra, some kind of glow that made people gravitate toward her. It didn't help that she carried herself like she belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine, while I was just trying to make it through the day without tripping over my own feet. For most of our childhood, I convinced myself I didn't care. I buried myself in books, in school, in my little hobbies that no one else paid attention to. Camille was always surrounded by people, friends, admirers, our parents fawning over her latest accomplishments. And I was the one behind the camera, taking pictures of her. That was our dynamic. That was how it had always been. But the moment that truly shattered me, the moment that proved, without a doubt, that I was nothing more than an afterthought to them, that happened 3 weeks before our 18th birthday. Dinner was supposed to be a casual family thing, just my parents, Camille, and me. Mom had made her signature roast chicken, and Dad had poured himself an expensive glass of bourbon. Everything seemed normal. I should have known better. So, Mom said, setting down her fork with a smile, we booked the venue today. I glanced up. What venue? Camille's eyes sparkled. For my debutante ball. I froze. Her debutante ball? I looked between my parents, waiting for someone to correct her. Wait, you mean our debutante ball, right? I asked slowly. We're twins. Mom barely glanced at me as she reached for her wine glass. Sweetie, these things are very expensive. We had to make a choice. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. A choice? There wasn't supposed to be a choice. It's a debut. We're both turning 18. Dad sighed, already tired of the conversation. Alina, don't make this a big deal. Camille's a natural for this kind of event. She's been preparing for years. She's been preparing? I cut in, my heart pounding. And what about me? Dad just smirked. Honey, let's be honest. You've never been the type for the spotlight. I felt like I'd been slapped. Camille, of course, sat there looking perfectly unbothered, twirling her hair like she hadn't just witnessed my soul being crushed at the dinner table. I could have been the type, I said through gritted teeth. If you'd given me the chance. Mom sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Alina, there's no need to make this about you. Camille has the grace, the poise. These events are for girls who stand out. I clenched my fists under the table. And I don't? Dad rolled his eyes and took a sip of bourbon. You're just not that special. Silence. A cold, horrible silence. The kind that stretches out too long and leaves you feeling hollow. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to nod, pushing my plate away. Got it. Then I stood up and walked away, leaving my so-called family to enjoy the rest of their special night. The next day, I felt like a ghost. Rosa, my best friend, was already waiting for me by my locker. One look at my face, and she knew something was wrong. What happened? She asked, narrowing her eyes. I shook my head. Same old story. She crossed her arms. What do they do now? I sighed, leaning against the lockers. Camille's getting a debutante ball. Just her. My parents said I'm not the type for it, that I'm not special enough. Rosa's jaw dropped. Are you kidding me? Wish I was. I swear to God, your parents have some kind of evil twin syndrome, she muttered. Like, here's our gorgeous, perfect daughter, and oh yeah, here's a spare one too. I laughed, but it felt empty. Before Rosa could launch into another rant about how my parents kid, I noticed a girl from the grade below us staring at me. She hesitated for a second before stepping closer. Hey, she said cautiously. Are you the girl from the viral video? I blinked. What? She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. It's all over TikTok. I swear it's you. Confused, I leaned in. She tapped on a video, and suddenly there I was, on the screen. It was a clip from a school's talent show last month. The one where I'd been forced to go up and sing because the original performer bailed. I'd been nervous as HLL, convinced I was going to embarrass myself. But apparently, someone had filmed it, and now it had millions of views. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't just Camille's shadow. I was more special than they ever knew. I couldn't stop staring at the screen. The video was grainy, shot from somewhere in the middle of the audience, but the audio was clear. It was me, standing under the harsh school auditorium lights, gripping the microphone like it was my last lifeline, eyes shut tight as I sang. I had forgotten how that moment felt. The nerves, the way my hands trembled at first. But then about halfway through, something had changed. The crowd had gone completely silent, and I had felt it, the shift. The moment where I wasn't just some random girl on stage anymore. Where the music became bigger than my fear. Now, apparently, The rest of the world had felt it too. I looked at the view count. 3.2 million. My stomach flipped. This can't be real. The girl holding the phone grinned. It's real. You're huge right now. Everyone's talking about how insane your voice is. I took the phone from her, scrolling through the comments. Who I asked this girl? How is she not famous yet? I have chills. She sounds better than half the singers on the radio. The emotion in her voice? I'm actually crying. I swallowed hard. Rosa practically vibrated with excitement beside me. Alina, you realize what this means, right? I shook my head, still struggling to process it. No. What does it mean? It means, she said, grabbing my shoulders, that you just went viral. You're blowing up. You're somebody now. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I'd always been somebody. That this wasn't about now. It was about the fact that no one had ever bothered to see it before. But instead, I just whispered, holy SHD. And for the first time in my life, I felt something dangerous stirring in my chest. I wanted more. I spent the rest of the school day in a daze. Every time I checked my phone, my notifications had exploded even more. By lunchtime, the video had hit 4 million views. A couple of small music pages had reposted it. People from other schools, people who had never given me the time of day before, were suddenly sliding into my DMs. And then, just as I thought it couldn't get crazier, Rosa gasped and shoved her phone in my face. Alina, she breathed. Look. It was an Instagram story from Kayla Madison. As in, the Kayla Madison. Chart-topping, Grammy-winning, pop superstar Kayla Madison. The story was a black background with white text. No tag, no caption, just a simple repost of my video. But the message underneath made my pulse hammer in my throat. This girl is the real deal. I clapped a hand over my mouth. Alina, she knows who you are. Rosa shook me like a rag doll. Kayla Madison, she knows who you are. I felt lightheaded. I think I might pass out. No, you're not. Rosa snapped, fanning me aggressively. Because you're living for this moment, okay? You're gonna breathe it in and own it like the queen you are. I asked in a shaky breath. Okay, say it with me. Rosa grinned. I'm that BTCH. I let out a choked laugh. Oh my God, say it. I'm that BTCH, I mumbled. Louder. I'm that BTCH. Rosa smacked the cafeteria table. HLL, yeah, you are. When I got home that evening, Camille was in the living room, draped across the couch like some Victorian lady waiting to be fanned with palm leaves. She was texting furiously, probably planning her perfect, princessy debutante ball. She didn't even look up when I walked in. I need to borrow your curling iron, she said absently. I didn't respond. I was still too charged from the insanity of my day. I hadn't told my parents yet. I wasn't sure how to, but I could already imagine the conversation. Mom, Dad, guess what? Millions of people think I'm talented. That's nice, dear. Now help Camille pick out a dress. I was about to head upstairs when I heard Camille snort. You're kind of all over the internet today, she said, smirking at her phone. I froze. Oh, so you did see it? I said, my voice carefully neutral. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, people are acting like you're some kind of superstar now. I bristled at her tone. Maybe because they think I'm good? Camille made a face. I mean, yeah, you can sing, but it's not that big of a deal. I clenched my jaw. Of course she'd say that. Of course, the second I got even a fraction of the attention that had always been hers, she tried to downplay it. I smiled sweetly. Funny. Kayla Madison thinks it is a big deal. Camille's head snapped up. Liar. I pulled out my phone and showed her the repost. She blinked. For the first time in our lives, Camille was speechless. And God, it felt good. But the best part? That night at dinner, my parents finally noticed. Dad was halfway through complaining about some work issue when Camille, still fuming, slammed her phone onto the table. Can we please talk about the fact that Alina is suddenly famous? She huffed. Mom frowned. What? Camille scoffed. Seriously? You haven't seen it? She's going viral. Millions of views. Kayla Madison literally reposted her. Silence. Dad put down his fork. Kayla Madison? The singer? Yes, Camille said, crossing her arms. Mom turned to me, studying me like I was some strange new species she had never seen before. Is this true? I took a slow sip of my water, savoring the moment. Then I shrugged. Guess I'm kind of big deal now. Dad frowned. Well, what exactly does that mean? It's just a video, right? I shrugged again. I don't know. Some people get discovered this way. You'd be surprised. Mom pursed her lips, clearly trying to suppress whatever emotions were bubbling under the surface. Camille, meanwhile, looked like she wanted to claw her own face off. And that's when I realized this was the first time my parents had ever looked at me like I was the important twin. Like I was something they hadn't expected. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. For the first time in my life, my parents were actually paying attention to me. It wasn't the warm, doting kind of attention they had always showered on Camille, but it was there. I could feel their curiosity, their discomfort, the way they suddenly didn't know what to do with me. Camille, on the other hand, was seething. After dinner, I retreated to my room, lying on my bed and scrolling through my notifications. My follower count was exploding. My inbox was flooded with messages from strangers, some kind, some creepy, but the overwhelming majority were from people who were excited about me. Then, the message that changed everything came in. Hey, Alina. I'm Jason Carter, talent scout for Blue Wave Records. We came across your video and would love to chat. Have you ever considered a career in music? Let's set up a call. I nearly dropped my phone. I reread the message at least 5 times, my pulse racing. A talent scout. A real, actual talent scout. I sat up straight, my hands shaking as I quickly looked up Blue Wave Records. They were legit. Not the biggest label, but they had worked with rising artists who eventually went mainstream. This wasn't some scam. This was real. I bolted downstairs, unable to keep it in. Mom, Dad, my voice was steadier than I expected. A music label just reached out to me. Mom blinked. A what? I showed them the message. Dad took my phone and squinted at the screen like it might be a prank. A talent scout? Yes. I exhaled. They want to talk to me. Mom hesitated, setting down her wine glass. And, you think this is a good idea? I frowned. Why wouldn't it be? Dad sighed. Alina, sweetheart, these things don't always go anywhere. You don't want to get your hopes up over something small. I knew that tone. It was the same condescending voice he used when he didn't take me seriously, when he thought I was chasing something impossible. But this time, I wasn't going to let him dismiss me. I'm taking the call, I said firmly. This is my chance. Mom forced a tight smile. Of course, darling. Just don't be disappointed if nothing comes of it. Camille, who had been quiet up until now, suddenly scoffed. It's probably a scam. I mean, you're not even a trained singer. You don't do this professionally. I turned to her, my patience running out. And yet, here we are. She scowled. I went back upstairs without another word. The call with Jason Carter was life-changing. He was straightforward, telling me that I had raw talent and a unique voice, but I needed work. He wanted me to record a demo, collaborate with a few producers, and see where it led. It wasn't a guarantee of stardom, but it was a real opportunity. So I took it. The next few months were a whirlwind. I juggled school with recording sessions, taking every chance I could to prove myself. Rosa was my biggest cheerleader, hyping me up every step of the way. Meanwhile, my parents didn't know what to do with me. They were used to ignoring me, but now I was everywhere. People at school started treating me differently. Teachers who had never remembered my name suddenly called on me in class. Even Camille's friends, the same girls who had always acted like I didn't exist, started talking to me. And Camille? She hated it. She would roll her eyes whenever my name was mentioned. She started throwing jabs at me whenever she could, subtle at first, but then more desperate. One night, she walked into my room, arms crossed. I don't get it, she muttered. You never cared about music before. Why now? I met her gaze evenly, because I was never given the chance before. She scoffed. You act like Mom and Dad are villains. They just never thought I was good enough. I finished for her. She didn't deny it, and that was all I needed to hear. The day of Camille's debutante ball arrived. My parents had spent months preparing for this. The perfect venue, the perfect dress, the perfect everything for their perfect daughter. I was expected to show up, of course, as background decoration, but I had other plans. Because that same night, I had my first official performance. A producer, Jason, had booked me for a small, exclusive showcase in New York City. Nothing huge, but big enough that industry insiders would be there. So when the ball started and Camille twirled onto the dance floor in a $1,000 gown, I was 200 miles away, standing on a stage with a microphone in my hand. And this time, people were there for me. The performance was electric. The crowd cheered. I sang like my life depended on it. And when I stepped off that stage, breathless and buzzing, Jason grinned at me. You're ready, he said simply. We're signing you. By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up because someone, probably Rosa, had live-streamed my performance. And while Camille was making her grand entrance at the debutante ball, my video was going viral again. By morning, I was trending. And when my parents saw, well, let's just say they finally realized that they had bet on the wrong horse. Camille's big night? Completely overshadowed. And the best part? I didn't even need to rub it in their faces. Because the moment I walked into the house, my parents looked at me with something I had never seen before. Fear. Not because they were scared of me, but because they knew. They had messed up. They had spent years worshiping Camille, pouring everything into her, while I had been their afterthought. And now, I was the one who had a future. A real one. A few months later, when I officially moved to New York to pursue my career, my parents tried to act supportive. They pretended they had always believed in me. But I didn't need their approval anymore. Camille watched it all happen with quiet resentment. I knew she hated every second of it, the attention shifting away from her, the realization that she wasn't the star anymore. But she couldn't stop it, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't living in her shadow. I was standing in my own spotlight, and I was never stepping back. The best revenge? Success. I didn't need to destroy Camille. I didn't need to make my parents suffer. I just had to prove that I was worth something, that I was special. And now, they knew. They all knew. And that was more satisfying than anything.